Okay, I will call the special town meeting for the town of Southbury, September 19th, 2024, to order at 7 PM in room 205. I will ask for nominations from the floor for a moderator.
I nominate Jason Postman as moderator.
Can I have us made a second? Is there any other nominations? Come on, someone. Any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? And there are no other nominations. So, Jason, you are the moderator.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So I'd like to ask the first selectman to, oh wait, no. Ask the moderator to read the warning of the meeting, the clerk.
Notice and warning, special town meeting, Town of Southbury, September 19th, 2024, 7 p.m. Notice is hereby given to the electors of the Town of Southbury and those qualified to vote at a town meeting that a special town meeting will be held on Thursday, September 19th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in room 205 of the Southbury Town Hall to consider and act upon a resolution to transfer an additional $505,000 from the unassigned fund balance to the emergency operation account.
Thank you. Now I'll ask the first selectman to read the resolution.
Resolved upon the recommendation of the Board of Finance and Selectmen, this town meeting hereby approves the transfer of an additional $505,000 from the unassigned fund balance to the emergency operation account.
Is there a second to the resolution?
Oh, I gotta read
Anyone.
let me read the resolution.
I thought you were reading.
That was not the official resolution, that was. What's that? You did. They did, okay, we're good. I have two, okay.
What's this one? Is there a second to the resolution? Okay, would anyone like to speak for or against the resolution? Anyone? Anyone like to comment on the resolution? A lot of people here. I don't think you guys are here for the town meeting. So with no comments, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? Ayes have it. Resolution carries. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Mr. Van Stone, Judy, all in favor of adjourning the meeting? Aye. Any opposed? Town meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Okay. So far, so good. Nice job. Okay, I will call the regular Board of Selectmen meeting, September 19th, 2024, room 205, to order at 7:03 p.m. Can we have the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up, we have an appointment, a resolution to appoint, resolve that the Southbury Board of Selectmen hereby appoints Jason Van Stone as a member of the Board of Selectmen effective immediately for a term to expire December 1st, 2024. Do I have that motion?
I'll make the motion.
2025, sorry.
I'll make the motion.
Can I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And there's no one opposed. And it carries. Congratulations, Mr. Van Stone. If you would come up, I will swear you in. If you will raise your right hand, repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge, according to law, the duties of the Board of Selectmen for Town of Southbury to the best of my ability, that, I will have your signature, which is right there. Today's the 19th. Thank you. You may have a seat. You are a full member, and I appreciate that. Okay. You're not staying? We're losing people.
It was twisting arm getting to this
You know, I mean, wow, we'll give the crowd a minute. I can't grow a crowd like that.
I thought we were going to have a big town meeting.
I thought it was all us. I thought it was us. Okay, next up is public comment. If there's any public comments, if we could limit it to 2 minutes, I would like to please come to, and press the button to turn it green, and you're good to go.
It's not easy being green, no. Ed Edelson, 609B Heritage Village. I wanted to pass along some institutional history that you might not be aware of, because I saw on the agenda tonight you're going to be talking about Exit 15. When I was first selectman, we had a need to address Exit 16. We could not do any further economic development at Exit 16 because the Department of Transportation had determined that that interchange was insufficient to carry the traffic load. So we had, as the Board of Selectmen prior to me in 2010, had actually thought of using town money to fix that interchange, which most of us thought was inappropriate, or at least I thought so. So when I came into office, I began phone calling the Department of Transportation, and that's when I learned about the West of Waterbury study, which had been done early in the 2001-2002 period. And in calling around to different people, somebody said to me, well, you know, we have money for Exit 14, 15, and 16. And I said, what do you mean you have money? He said, well, when the overall West of Waterbury project was canceled, which would have used federal funds, there were state funds left over, and we put them in a separate account, and the money's still there. And so I said, well, how come you just didn't go ahead and do that work? And he said, well, we asked the Board of Selectmen in Southbury, and they said they didn't want that work done at Exit 14, 15, and 16. So I raised my hand, and I said, I'd like that done. And that's how we got the money to do Exit 16, which I believe was finished in 2015, and some money and design for Exit 14. But for Exit 15, the Planning Commission decided that that wasn't a good idea. In particular, there were trees that had been planted along the east side of that interchange, kind of on the plaza boundary, and they felt that if we widened that, those trees would have to be eliminated. Well, as you might know, those trees did get eliminated by the tornado, but we never got the money. We never got the chance to do what many of us thought was important to improve the flow of traffic that had become dangerous from time to time when cars back up, and as a result, people can't get off 15 who might want to just go up to Woodbury, but are blocked because of people who can't get into the left turn lanes.
Thank you.
So missed opportunity.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Judy Katzmark, 646B Heritage Village. And I come to you as a member of the Senior Commission. We have lost our representative from the Board of Selectmen to our commission, and would like you to rapidly name a new person or someone to be of the liaison between the seniors and the town of Southbury. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Michelle Sullivan, 314 Southford Road. So this week was 30 days from the historic flooding. And it's easy as time passes to lose sight of that, to look at all of the things that we have achieved in such a short period of time, but also to lose sight of all of the things we haven't and how much repair there is still to be done. We've rebuilt roads. A bridge literally went in like yesterday, a few feet from my house, which was a little bit of a reminder to me just how important it is for us to realize that progress is gradual. With that, I've heard a lot of blame and credit in this room, out of this room, in meetings in this building, and in meetings throughout this community, and it pains me. I genuinely believe that tragedy should build community, not drive it apart, and I'm witnessing a great deal of tragedy having driven things apart here. So with that, my comment is that we need to find a way to improve the communication through this community. And that has to be two-way communication. It has to have better ways for folks to have communicate to you what is still left to be done, and communication from this group outward on all the things and the progress that is continued to be made in terms of FEMA disaster recovery, but as well as the successes that I know you guys all work day in and day out to produce, because we have to find a way to bridge that gap, or that blame and credit will just continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Is there any other public comment? One more time, is there any other public comment? Hearing none, we will move on to announcements and correspondence, which you have. You have your reports from departments: Animal Control, Building Department, Library. Next up is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Made and second. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And no one is opposed. Minutes of September 5th, 2024, regular meeting. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second, Tim?
Second.
Thank you. Jason, you weren't here, so you can abstain. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, and it carries. Unfinished business is next, I believe. Tim had asked for this to be put on the agenda. Larkin Bridle Path Crossing update. What's your question, Tim?
I just want an update on it. I know it's
Okay, right
been a
now,
while since,
DEP has their hands full. Most of the Larkin Trail is closed until they figure out what they're going to eventually do. They're not going to be opening up, so I think they have to come up with a plan. Just recently, yesterday, there's been a lot of talk on social media about the brown mud. There was a DEP, who's in control of the Larkin Trail, attempted to do a controlled release of impounded water behind the trail on Georges Hill by the gas line, and it went bad. It went really bad, and it blew out that Larkin Trail in that area. They dug down, and when they went to release the water, it took it all the way down to the bottom, and that put a 4-foot wall of water down Jeremy Swamp Culvert, all down that brook. It almost topped the Route 67, but it stayed in the culvert. People working there. It crossed over down Bullet Hill Brook, to which someone called from our emergency management at Playhouse Corner saying, what is going on? The brook just came up 4 feet and it's all like it's doing it again. To which it went down further, and the people in cleaning the library basement, Surf Pro people, heard a noise and evacuated because they thought there was another flood coming. So I have talked to the commissioner of DEP. She sent some people out. I had a discussion at 8 o'clock this morning about what the heck is going on, and it didn't work. But they released the water. It was all impounded in the back. I've asked DEP to make sure that fisheries and their water people, that they make sure that the swamp that's up behind that bridle path on that area is not drained and maintained, and that we try to figure out some way to recover Bullet Hill Brook, because it's a fisheries habitat, we know that. The Larkin Trail, my indication in the conversation, the commissioner was not there, but the engineer was there, and the chief of staff for the commissioner. And I asked about the trail, and they said they do not have the funding right now to do anything with the trail. They don't have the money. But that they will be looking at, it may require bridges to go across because they don't want to put back what was there. So they may be doing, and that's gonna take, could be 6 years.
Are those culverts, are they plugged? Is there anybody
They're
looking?
gone,
Okay, so
they're
you
gone.
tried to do a controlled release, yeah.
And they just went down to
My question more was on unfinished business, was about 6 months ago. There were a number of residents in the town of Southbury that came before this board asking for a redo on the Route 667 crossing. And I just wanted to know if there was any communication still with the state representatives on that. It's been-
DEP was discussing about grants and trails grants in order to get the improvements done. That was what the direction we were going. Right now, until this trail is determined what they're going to do, how they're gonna take care of it, they're not even letting people go through it. So it'll be some time. There's really no trail to
Well, people are still gonna be using it, and it is a safety issue, so I just didn't want it to get lost in the shuffle and not be
Yeah.
addressed.
Well, as soon as DEP gets figuring out what's going on and they can focus on something that they, they've got their hands full right now. So we'll be waiting for them. You also have some affordable housing rewording of STS state property update. We're gonna wait for legislature to get in, then we can start that process. They're not in session. Elections are coming up, and we'll go from there. Any other questions on that?
I believe Jordan, was Jordan and yourself working on the rewording of that, or?
No,
Who was?
nobody's working on the rewording yet until we'll get legislatures
Okay, well,
to the rewording. You wanna work on that?
I'd love to work on that. When is it coming up? I believe it's the beginning of next year.
Legislature goes into session at the beginning of January. So I think what this body should do is meet with their legislator at the beginning of the session and identify what the town would like to see there.
I don't know if, I didn't see on I have a sheet, but I'll take a look again. But at the end of the day, it really needs to get back in session with the legislature, and then they would have to work to get the wording and get it proposed.
The Public Act does need to be revised. I mean, I think
Right.
we all agree on that. and It's just a question of the scope.
Sooner than later. And the more we kick it down the road, the more it's not gonna happen.
Well, just remember also that no matter what happens, we need, right now, with real money, with today's money, probably 1.5 million to clean it up. And that's where you'll have to look for funding for an organization that can do the cleanup
Well,
first.
that's state property, so, I mean, this body or someone from this body should be talking to state representatives to find out whether or not they're gonna fund that cleanup.
As soon as they get in session. Okay? All right, next up is, wait, what do we have here? Okay. job description, Deputy Chief of Police. Do we have the description? Do I have, it's resolved that the Southbury Board of Selectmen hereby approves the attached job description for the Deputy Chief of Police. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jason. Any discussion on the job description? This was vetted through Labor Council. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'll just remind everyone, as part of the transition process and everything we did with the Police Services Study Committee and the referendum last year, it was always understood that there would be a second in command who was outside the union, and it would either be a captain or deputy chief or something like that. So that's what this is. This is already in our budget as part of the plan for our independent police force transition for this year.
Motion made and second. Another further discussion?
Thank you, Mr. First Selectman, through you. I had just one question. In the duties and responsibilities, this position will act as essentially the Internal Affairs Officer. I know we have a smaller department, so it's hard to really bifurcate that out to a special division, but generally, you'd want internal affairs outside the normal chain of command. I just want to make sure that was considered when this was put together. I don't have a better solution for it, but I just want to make sure it was considered.
Yeah. No, this was discussed, and the way this works generally in departments of this size, the captain or the deputy chief will do the research, gather the information, make a recommendation for the chief of police to what decisions should be made. So they'll run the internal affairs investigation, gather the information, not be part of that decision, but then put it up to the chief.
Understood, thank you.
Okay? Anyone else?
What's the actual difference between calling this position deputy chief, lieutenant?
On some departments, the captain can become or be a union person. So this is the clear defining of the separation of that and management. So it makes it a little cleaner, a little more accurate on what we're doing, and that they are outside of the normal union operation. That gives them the freedom, again, to do the internal affairs. Make sense?
And I'll just follow up on that because I had a similar question. So I did speak to the chief today, and my understanding it was a recommendation of Labor Council because of those reasons. So it was clear cut that they're separate.
Yeah. Anything else? All in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? And it carries. Tim wanted to discuss the splash pad ARPA funds?
Yeah, this came up as a liaison to Park and Rec. The last couple meetings that they had, there was some discussion on the splash pad and the possible locations for it. Public Works was talking back and forth, but the Park and Rec Commission really wasn't involved at all. So during the last 2 months, they did indicate that they do want to be consulted on it, and they do want to have a say on where it goes, whether it's Settlers Park or Ballantyne.
Okay. So, Dan, can you explain what we're doing with this, the finances with this? I do need to add another piece. So how do we do this? Add to the agenda for the,
Make a motion to add on the new business discussion of ARPA funds and invite the discussion from the town treasurer.
I'll second that.
any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries. So Dan can explain. We've been working on a little financial plan.
Yes, so we've been putting together a plan with the remaining ARPA funds. Basically, I sent this out, myself and Mr. Michaels, Chair of the Board of Finance, we got together after the last ARPA meeting to put together a plan on how we can spend the remaining funds, but also get the most benefit, which is including, putting some money toward the ladder truck, establishing some resident flood relief, and then also maintaining what's in there for the splash pads. We would have enough money, but utilizing those funds to offset the capital. We would put that in a capital program and then use the $183,000 to offset the capital funding. This hasn't been voted on by the ARPA task force yet, and of course, that task force will make the recommendation to this board to vote on it. This was just a draft, not a draft, but a proposal that I forwarded to the task force to review for our next meeting, which is next week, and then that recommendation will come back to you guys to vote on it.
And I'll just add, this came out of, this proposal came out of an extensive discussion at the ARPA meeting on Tuesday night. There was some inaccurate information spreading around about splash pads earlier that day, which the ARPA task force actually never prior to Tuesday did anything to change any appropriations as to splash pads. And in the proposal, which we haven't talked about yet, we'll talk about next week, the proposal from John Michaels and Dan is to maintain those funds where they are, but to provide some relief to our residents where we can that are suffering from the flood. So, maybe more on that.
Yep. So yeah, this was before my intent to have it on new business was just to make sure that this board understands that the Park and Rec Commission hasn't been involved with that discussion. But since then, there has been misinformation on these funds possibly being reappropriated. I'm happy to hear that they're not going to be, but I do understand that there are a number of people that are suffering from the flood, so that would be the number one concern.
So understand that the recent events have kind of changed some of the financial planning going forward that we're going to have to deal with, and that number's pretty big. But we also know that 183,000, is that that we left?
183,229 is still in ARPA funding for the splash pad.
So there just is not enough money in the ARPA funding in there to build it. So we're coming up with a proposal.
Yeah, we're actually going to request that our Park and Rec director do a capital request, which will then be voted on in capital at our budget process. And the $183,000 that's currently in there will be used to offset that capital request, and then the remaining amounts will come out of our long-term capital plan.
Now, would that go back to the 350 that was originally allocated during ARPA?
That's the number that I have, but however, we don't have any, we'd have to go out and get estimates, Tim, so it could be more, it could be less, but the 183 will offset whatever that cost is.
So
And
I
of
would
course,
think
that
that,
will go in the budget process, which
and
you
whose
guys will
task,
vote on board, it's
but
not
whose
vote on.
task would that be? Would that be Public Works, or would that be the Park and Rec Commission to come up with an estimate on what the splash pad would cost?
We would probably have an engineer come in and take a look at it, so it would probably be from one of our on-call engineer companies.
It'll probably be similar to what we did with the pool, which was good, better, best, giving an estimate of what those three are, and that can range from, I'm just shooting numbers, could range from 300 to $500,000. I mean, you can get very sophisticated.
Yep, and I think we'll have more answers after we hear from FEMA, when we do
Absolutely,
find out what.
and the 350, Tim, that number came from Milford, Connecticut, who just put a splash pad in Eisenhower Park, I think it was 2 years ago, and it cost $350,000.
Yeah, you don't, part of the problem we've run into with the splash pad, was, Dan, was it 100,000 for the water line?
In talking to our Public Works Director, who has experience in doing similar work, he said to run the water line in Valentine Park would probably be a little more than 100,000.
No, actually Blake said that would be 100,000 for settlers.
For settlers,
Oh,
sorry, one of
So
the
I think
parks.
what we have to determine is where the best place it would be.
Yeah, and I think that will, as we get an engineer, they would take a look and see where the best place would be. Because at Settlers, we already have a pad poured. Can we utilize that? You know?
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
This little discussion, too, of my memory, we all obviously she asked for this to be read, I'm not gonna do that, it's too long.
Is your mic on?
Sorry about that. We all got an email this morning from an affected resident, and it's a very long. I've met her. I know that she's she's an award-winning architect, but she mentioned I'm just trying to pull it up here. It's a funding mechanism from the feds outside of FEMA, EWPP. Do we know anything about that? Did you guys see Andrea's letter this morning?
I don't know anything about that.
Here we
I
go.
know We did get something.
The
PRW
federally
said-
funded Emergency Watershed Protection Program, EWPP, is designed to assist towns and states in re-engineering and rebuilding watershed systems. This program addresses imminent hazards from natural disaster, and she attached relevant documents detailing what it is. Federal government can cover 75 to 80% of reconstruction costs, with the town, state responsible for the remaining 10 or 25. You have to apply for it within 60 days of your disaster, so I'm just wondering if we're gonna make a good effort to take a look at this, because it certainly sounds compelling.
Yeah.
And
So
I'd never
think
heard of it.
I saw that. I think I have, if I remember, I'm going to have to try to get a hold of Carol from BRW's Watershed. That was part of that, to get an idea of what that means and she seems to know more about that, and they seem to be involved in that. So I'm trying to reach out to figure out what that is.
And that
You know,
might-
it's at 4:30 in the morning.
That might be a nice compliment to
Was on her mind.
what we're trying to do with the relief fund, which, this board will have to set up the guidelines on how that's distributed and set up, but it might be a nice compliment to that.
Yeah, the one thing about the email is it did state the email stated a deadline. I don't think we know enough around the table as to what that is, but the deadline that was stated is like October 17th or October 18th, something like that. So I do think it's something that the town needs to look at now. And they were looking for either the town or the state to sponsor an application, was what it was. So we should, with like you guys and Steve or whoever, see what needs to be done, or whether that's even a program available to us.
Great.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of difficult to get that thing in the morning and try to, with everything else that's going on, to get.
It was a short book, but very detailed. Yeah.
So, with anticipation of coming up with money to help the local citizens who have an issue or have exhausted other funds, we're looking to appropriate some money into a fund and possibly figure out how we might do that. One of the suggestions Dan made was run it similar to the small cities grants, where you're vetted criteria, income-based assets. There's a lot of things that go into it to make sure that the people we're helping, one of the things is make sure it's helping with their home, that their home. Excuse me. Dan suggested maybe we do it with just like small cities grants. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with this. It's a federal grant. The work goes out to bid. It's awarded. And it, depending on, not saying this is how you have to do it, but there's a mortgage put onto the house,
Lien.
which you do not have to pay, they don't pay back until the house is sold. And that helps the homeowners get to where they need to be. So that's, could be one of the structures. We're looking to see who we could put onto the committee. I'd like to start out with, I'd like to ask if Jason Van Stone and Tim O'Neill, so we have a Republican and a Democrat on the committee, would be willing to sit on that committee to get the criteria set up. I'd like to see, the suggestion would be people from finance, to be determined from a financial aspect. Board of Finance or Dan, how this will work. I think Dan can be in the background giving numbers, but somebody from the Board of Finance. The other thing is to find someone who has worked in this arena for giving, community giving. I'm thinking about somebody from the Community Foundation who may help us administer or understand, because this is not just a couple $1,000s. And it is taxpayers' money.
Do you, I know you mentioned during the ARPA fund that you'd better know next week when you hear from Representative Johanna Hayes on the potential FEMA money being available. Do you really have any kind of date on when you'll be hearing from any state reps?
So I want to be clear, because I don't like this political stuff that's going around. Representative Hayes is hopeful that she will hear something on Monday, meaning I'm not sure she's 100% in the loop, and I'm not faulting her for that. This is the executive branch that's dealing with this, and she is hoping, what she said to me is, I'm going to make another call on Monday to that branch. So we're hoping that by Monday. If you look at, I'm a little concerned, they've got other, I mean, they just had a hurricane down south, and they flooding, and then they have the fires, and this all mounts up. But if you look under, I think it's the Small Business Administration, there's a link, you dig for it, of when disasters happened and when they were declared. And I think we're getting past the normal declaring side. But again, you don't know, I mean, I'm not looking to get after anybody except that it doesn't, we got hurt. But there's also FEMA disasters around the country that are also being brought forward. So I'm sure they have a lot to think about. I hope that in the middle of next week that I'm able to hear something about a full declaration. And from there, I guess, okay, now what does that mean and where do we go from there? What pools of money? We have to be very careful how we step and what we do to get reimbursement. And it's, as Betsy will tell you, we thought we would have everything down pat in this tornado, and all of a sudden they want latitude and longitude of every root ball there was. So, and we don't want to make a misstep. So once we know, we can say, okay, give us the guidelines, give us an understanding of what we can do. We're still operating in an emergency situation, which I'm hoping, like Old Waterbury Road, gets covered. That's my hope, is to get that open. We're not building a new road, but it has to become passable. So we're still under emergency operation. We just appropriated more emergency money, which is outside of the reconstruction that we're going to need to do. You know, the library basement, they did a heck of a job. It's almost cleared, and the fireproofing is drying out and seems to be hardening up. So I don't know what that means, but we'll find out. But, you know, they're getting to the end on that, and which will make us very happy to stabilize that basement moisture content. And always ran humidifiers down there. There was always humidity down there. We always ran humidifiers. But once we can get that better controlled, then we'll know what we can. And we want to get going on something because we have winter coming, and I really, you know, we're going to either have to decommission the whole building with to protect it over the winter, or we're going to have to know what we can do for temporary heat to keep it from freezing, or if we can open. So there's a lot going on. I mean, actually, frankly, we're making some pretty good progress in that area.
One question that I do have, I know there's a number of individual homeowners that have had their driveways wiped out and their homes are pretty much inaccessible. I think it's a great idea with the $400,000 fund set up. Getting back to your question, whatever I could do, I definitely
So I'd ask
Be open
you
to
and
that.
Jason to work, we'll be on that committee once we get this. And it was brought to our attention at the ARPA meeting that, you know, we're not like down south, we have winter coming. And it's, it's hard, difficult for our residents to wait. It's difficult for everybody. They have, it's difficult for them to wait. They need the designs, they need to get the money. Some people will be able to come up with the money, and maybe they don't need help because they are financially capable of fixing their driveways. But this is mostly for those who are just not financially capable of restoring access to their home. And they'll have to be vetted and proven that that's a problem. If it's 50,000 and you have 50,000 in the bank, I don't see a financial problem. But if you have somebody who's not in that situation, we have to do the yeoman's effort to try and give some help and get them to that point. The other problem is how much is that? Is it 10% of the project, 50% of the project? How do we spread the peanut butter across the board so that everybody's helped if we only have a certain amount of money? So that's gonna be a little bit of a challenge.
Okay, other question, I know during ARPA, there was talk about reappropriating some funds that are in there. Where would this $400,000 fund come from? Would that be from ARPA money or from our rainy day fund?
The
Dan, you're
proposal,
doing the finance.
the proposal is the ARPA reallocation.
Yeah, the proposal is reallocation of funds that we have in the ARPA fund.
And would that basically be the 1.5 million?
Part of the
for
1.5, yeah.
Affordable housing?
Yep.
Okay.
That 1.5 was a number that Pierce Hollow felt they needed. And that part of that was to get that ball rolling and get the cleanup money, and that never was able to come to fruition.
And
So
our-
it freed up the 1.5.
Our goal, Tim, when we put it together, was to try and help as many people as we can, but also have the smallest impact on budgets, so we didn't wanna do too many major changes and take stuff out of the budget, so that was the easiest way to get these funds to be available, to get this set up and get started.
Yeah, and currently, there's been about 1.5 million taken out of our reserves. What is the balance
took,
after tonight?
We took $1 million out of reserves as of June 30th, which we just finished, we just released. We haven't issued yet, but we have a draft financial statement. We have $9.2 million on unassigned fund balance.
How much was that?
$9.2 million.
9.2 million in reserves.
Well, no, that's in our unassigned fund balance. So
Unassigned.
reserves are different. We have, and the reserves are earmarked to vehicle replacement and things like that. There's about $11 million in our reserve portfolio.
And we have to be careful. We have to be careful, because if we're gonna go to bond and get the work done, we have to maintain a fund balance that Wall Street is gonna keep us with AAA. So there's a whole balancing act to,
I have full confidence in Dan Colton.
none of me.
No, this board and prior boards and has done a great job financially keeping this town as well managed as possible. And I'll tell you, it makes my job a lot easier, that's for sure.
Okay? All right. That splash pad, ARPA, that kind of the financial plan. We'll have Jason and Tim work on, we're trying to move quickly. That's why we haven't, time's of the essence, because once approved and once we roll, we're trying to get something done before it freezes. So it's the best we can, and there's certain constraints within appropriation and noticing and everything that we you have to notice 10 days, you have to do this, you have to do this. It puts that timeline out there close. So we have to kind of work, not just to move towards that appropriation, but at the same time, I'm asking to move along with a structure or a solution so that when we do the appropriation, we can give the proper assistance to get people ready for winter, so to speak. That's what we're gonna try to do. All right? Landfill fees waived for those affected by the budget. I'm gonna read a statement. I have seen comments made on social media by the Democratic Town Committee Chair, Michael Carrington. I would like to respond to several false statements recently made by Michael Carrington on social media. Mr. Carrington commented on social media that Public Works told Mr. Manville ending the fee waiver was a bad idea. He didn't care. This is a false statement. There was a recommendation by Public Works to cease fee waiver because it was the opinion and observation of the transfer station that there were people taking advantage of the waiver by bringing non-flood related materials. Contrary, there was no fight. I reinstated the fee waiver for storm-related damage on October 12th, 2024. There was talk about a heated discussion. Mr. Carrington commented, Mr. Manville said, people are all cleaned up and now we need to get back to business. I never said this. Mr. Carrington is chair of the Democratic Town Committee, and my gut tells me he is making this up for political purposes. Mr. Carrington commented the Board of Selectmen thankfully reined him in, referring to the first selectman in this time, but they were not always capable of doing that. The Board of Selectmen did not rein me in. There was no discussion with members of the Board of Selectmen or a vote taken on this matter. The Board of Selectmen discussed and voted on many issues that I have brought to the elected board. The outcome of the votes has been mostly unanimous per the record. No need to rein me in. Mr. Carrington also made a statement that various selectmen expressed concerns about removing the waiver, and they said they wanted to vote on this at the next Board of Selectmen meeting, and only then did Mr. Manville relent. To make it clear, my office heard from only one selectman, Selectman Tim O'Neill, and not from any other selectman. So the multiple sources he says he heard from is a long stretch from the facts. There was also a talk that there was a heated discussion amongst the four of us. That's not true. There was a discussion about waiving the fees that involved Dan Colton, our Public Works Director, Matt. I was then called in to get my input, give my input, and I said, sure, let's do that at your recommendation. What Mr. Carrington does not or chooses not to understand is the difficulty of running an emergency operation that involves reimbursement by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. What Mr. Carrington fails to recognize is that FEMA reimburses 100% of the 2018 tornado costs associated with the storm and an additional $75,000 in administrative reimbursement because of the town's precise adherence to the federal FEMA guidelines. Similarly, my administration handled COVID under the same guidelines, and the flood event will be no different. I have pulled this town out of 2 previous disasters, and I have taken the appropriate steps without knowing I would have a 3rd disaster of this magnitude. To put this current flooding in perspective, the tornado recovery cost was $1.8 million. As of today, we are estimating full recovery from the flood to cost close to $100 million. It costs more than 50 times as the tornado. Remember, while nothing of this magnitude runs perfectly, schools open on time with only a few modified school routes. Most roads are open, and remaining closed roads are likely to be open in the next 2 weeks. Based on the tornado and COVID, I saw the need and value for a full-time emergency management director. Under my administration, we implemented technology to track losses, GL code, document, and report the emergency. When FEMA came to Southbury to assess our flood damages, they stated they would like Southbury to be the case study for running an emergency operation. They stated they had never seen a municipality run their emergency operations so well and how well our departments work together. All selectmen were notified of the emergency briefings and were welcome to attend the meetings. We communicated extensive information to the public on our websites, e-blast, social media, and at in-person events. Emergency management briefed the Board of Selectmen meetings. At any time, Board of Selectmen members could have reached out to our emergency management director or my office if they had a question. I can only conclude that the reason there were so few calls was that the Board of Selectmen members had the information they needed. It would seem these statements made by the chair of the Democratic Town Committee are more political than productive. His candidate for the 69th district also made a similar accusation on the way the town handled the flooding by commenting Southbury deserves better on social media to use this disaster in an attempt for political gain. I would take Mr. Carrington's comments with more than a grain of salt and take it for what it's worth. Southbury is still in a vulnerable state with a lot more work to do. The flooding left drains and culverts clogged and storm debris which must be removed. The drainage systems are vulnerable to even small storms now and reduced capacity, and most repairs being only a Band-Aid. We are awaiting the federal government executive branch to declare a major disaster. I am not faulting the federal government or FEMA, as they are dealing with many other natural disasters across our country. I choose to be understanding of the difficulties they face and work productively with them rather than try to gain political capital for my own purposes, which, in my opinion, is the measure of a good leader. I will do my best for Southbury, though I know that perfection is not achievable. There is a saying, perfection is the enemy of good. Let's discuss the landfill fees. What would you like to say?
So I actually asked you to add this to new business because I know there's a number of people that have been affected by the flood, and on September 4th, this office waived the fees and pretty much gave everybody until September 17th, 13 days later. That's when it was supposed to end. I have a number of debris on my property that I don't know I'll get cleaned up until the end of the year. So I don't think October 2nd or 12th is really reasonable for the people that are affected. I would ask that the fees for anybody that was affected by the floods be waived to the end of the year. It's pretty easy to determine who had been affected. Most people have signed up under Crisis Track or have documented debris when they dumped it at the landfill. First I've heard of anything you said about Michael Carrington.
It's on social media.
Well, not everybody's on social media.
We have to be very careful. I know this, of how we approach this disaster. We cannot make a misstep on something, believe it or not, as minor as bringing in some debris 3 months later. And if FEMA looks at that and kicks it out and says, you're not following our guidelines, this has to be done by the book, leaving no doubt in FEMA's mind that it's debris cleanup. I know you had brought material there, yet the recording of that, the upload only happened Saturday. That should have been done weeks ago, asking people to record their damages. And record it, document it, and send the pictures. And there was many, many meetings we had, especially amongst the selectmen.
But there's not a deadline to do that.
Well, I know, but
There's no
it
deadline
wasn't
to do
until
that.
Saturday.
The
So-
people that are affected are busy
We
cleaning
have-
their property up.
And we have people, there are definitely material coming to the landfill that is not flood-related.
Pretty easily to be determined, though, where it's coming from. So I don't know why you're putting a stipulation that October 2nd is the deadline. What are the guidelines for FEMA?
That was the
then?
recommendation of the Public
What
Works.
are the guidelines for FEMA? You said there were
It has to be
guidelines for FEMA?
flood-related.
That's it?
It has to be flood-related
Okay,
damage.
so why wouldn't you
So
do it
when
for
are
the
you
end of the year?
suggesting we should do that? Would you like to talk to FEMA about that? Ask them?
Why would I talk to FEMA about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna get this.
Isn't that your job?
I'm gonna get, I am, and that's why
Okay,
I'm
well,
making
then let us know
decisions.
what the guidelines are.
I am making these decisions to make sure it's flood-related. We are getting material into the transfer station that is a concern of our Public Works Director that is not flood-related. Documentation of where it came from, who it is, and a picture. And
And
there
the
are
pictures will
concerns.
document the longitude and latitude of where that came from. It's pretty easy to determine where that came from. Right from your smartphone.
I've run 2 disasters. I'm gonna make sure the town gets back, that recovers the money. Right now.
Well, then you would
we've
want
set-
everything recorded. That's flood-related.
Yes, we will.
Anybody else?
I would just hope there's a way that we can sync up the people who don't have driveways to allow them, whenever they get their driveway back,
We can make
to bring their
exceptions.
material. Because
we can-
it's not fair that the people with the biggest bills don't get to bring their garbage.
Right.
It's just not fair.
Yeah, we can make exceptions for that. We documented those for sure. And there's certainly at that point, we can say that fee is waived. This is the documentation of their
Yeah.
problem.
This is their
Here it is, and FEMA would say, we understand.
Maybe, it's October 12th, not October 2nd. I just looked at the Facebook page. So we have another Board of Selectmen meeting before then. Maybe we can talk to Public Works, determine a way where this stuff can be documented, confirm with FEMA, and then come to a decision as to what makes the most sense on these items. And then certainly, I agree with Justin, protecting people who can't get there right now. But I think that we have time, because it's a month away, so we can, gather some information, hopefully through the first selectman's office, have a further discussion once we potentially have a plan for how best to proceed.
Yeah, please consider people that do have full-time jobs, and the only time they're gonna be able to try to clean their property up is a Saturday, where the landfill closes at 3 o'clock. There were no extended hours. That's all I'm saying. There's a number of people that have been affected by this flood that we should be going out of our way to help them out.
Okay, anybody else? All right, we will move on to exit 15, discussion with the state for redesign of islands. I have no idea what that is.
Again, I asked you to put this on the agenda a number of years ago. There was a redesign, as our former First Selectman Ed Edelson pointed out in owner comment. Exit 15 really is the introduction to Southbury, and as everybody knows, the tsunami that came down there wiped out a lot of the islands that are in there. I just would, hope that someone in town government does start a dialogue with state reps to find out what and if can be done at exit 15, especially with everything that needs to be done as far as rebuilding that area.
So the history, so that you know, the history is there was an adopt a spot where businesses would take responsibility for the spot for planting and maintaining. They were supposed to take care of all that. Little by little, they have not. So it never was the responsibility of the town of Southbury to maintain those spots. It became extremely expensive because of traffic control, traffic pattern, and the requirements that the state of Connecticut has in order to work on those islands and the hours of operation. So it became a requirement for OSHA and traffic safety, that you had to have traffic patterns, traffic setup, you had to have police, you had to do it a certain time, you had to bring people on overtime to do it, and it became extremely expensive. And it was plantings were a little expansive. And if anybody knows, in landscaping, it's nice to plant a lot of it, but you also have to weed it all the time. So I think what we would be looking for down the road, once we get whatever recovered, matter of fact, we were told a few times, there's a tree there that is, the branch is blocking the state traffic control sign. Would you like it to trim it, or would you like us to trim it? So we went down and trimmed it. We got holy hell for trimming that tree back like we did, but their solution was trimming it 2 inches off the ground. They were gonna remove it because they cannot, you cannot block it. So in order to plant those, I would say we would look at a sponsor. Blake Leonard suggested we get a sponsor that would pay for it, and also a bond should they not maintain it. Because we can't just start gung-ho and do it and then be left. And it would probably would be requiring probably I would look for a more simplistic design that will be able to be there without having to do major maintenance. I mean, it was beautiful, but it is, you would have to put there's not money even in the budget for that. It was never in the budget to maintain that.
No, I just wanted to get it on the agenda, so if there is dialogue with the state on when they do reconfigure that something would come up that
I don't know of any
better
plans
serves
to
the community.
reconfigure.
Well,
Other than
I
those
think we
plans.
should, I don't mean to interject, but I think we should take out those old plans that got voted down by the planning commission and see if they can be updated or modified in a way that the town would find acceptable. The flood that happened in front of the plaza at the entrance, that's not the only time that happened. That happened, there was a car floating there in 2021, and there's frequently cones there as well. We've all seen exit 14 rebuild going on. This isn't just widening things and putting new curbs on it. It's all new drainage. So I'd like us to not focus on the islands, but focus on getting those old plans out that we turned away and get the exit 15 and the intersection in front of the plaza brought up to a level of service that makes sense, because the drainage there does not work clearly.
There's a couple problems, in my opinion, on that area. Number one, the culverts that go under Route 6 and 67 from the plaza are not big enough, one. They're also small, bunch of small ones, which lends itself to clogging, then overflowing, and the rest of the problem. Having lived here all my life, and having had my grandfather own a store right there, which was Green Store, which when they did that whole road was lowered so much, and it is pitched towards those culverts, not towards the shed. And then you go into the plaza and you go down and then back up. There's something, in my opinion, that was not quite done. I don't know, but I can start that conversation with NV-COG. That's where it resided the last time, the 3 exits with COG. And I can talk to them about that and see if there is, because it is a main, I'm not just talking about access to businesses or whatever, but like that side of the road on the plaza is low.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that was ever done that way.
And just to be clear for folks at home, if anybody's listening, this would be state money. I'm not suggesting that the town take on another construction project. This would be state money, state contractors, just like Exit 14, just like Exit 16. But I think we should, I mean, I understand why it was turned down for aesthetic value, but I think we all know that there are things more important than aesthetic value now. And these storms are not gonna stop.
Yeah, and I mean, and I'll remind Justin and Jason have been on the board with me. I went out with a reporter from CT Mirror, and I showed, who's talking about resiliency and what we're facing. And I toured the bridges, East Flat Hill. You remember, we asked finance, they were talking about culverts, or some were saying, well, they're less. And we said, bridge, we want the bridge, and we built the bridge. And she was taking pictures. Nothing, other than overtopped, nothing happened. It's fine. When the water receded, we drove across. I then took her to Purchase Brook Road Bridge, which we just got done with. If we had it paved, there'd have been no damage. But even with that, it was minimal to get that back up and running. It was like a day or two, and we never lost the structure. I showed her the structure on West Flat Hill that is a culvert. I said, this is the same water course. I would look to redo West Flat Hill with a bridge raised so the debris flows through rather than being caught. I took her over to Old Field Road where we have two culverts. And the laid up blocks and the whatever, and what the problem we have. This should be a bridge. And that's what we're gonna look to do, is create a bridge so that will flow through and flow under. I also pointed out that since I've been in office, we have redone, there's been an aggressive program to do all of our detention basins that were overgrown and filling up. We have a lot of them that have been repaired. Now, it would not have mattered in this event, but we've been fixing the design flaws. My point was to get across to the reporter and hopefully writing an article of the need to build back the right way, resilient. Not that it will take a 1,000-year storm, that it won't flood, but that we will be able to recover much quicker and not have to go through what we've gone. The wing walls with poured concrete and the structure, you can see, if you go to Purchase Brook Road Bridge, you can see the amount of material that passed, rocks, big stuff, went through. And that's why that bridge, though it did go over, that bridge did not fail. I took them over to our design build I took her over to River Road. And I know there was people waiting to see failure. That never moved.
Looks good.
And we took I explained to her that not only did we do one set of gabion walls, in the field we determined that it was better to put a second set on top of it and riprap back. And that much more of that bank should be done over time and removal of trees so they don't pull the root balls up. But we built that to withstand that withstood a 1,000-year storm, 3 times as much as the flood of '55. So we know what we're doing, is what I explained to her. The question is the federal government, COGS, all the people that are involved, are they gonna let us build it correctly? And that's my hope. And again, thank God Dan's with us, because Dan will do the numbers for us. And with as a acceptable impact to our budget as we can. I remind people that $100 million in callable bonds is a 16% increase in taxes just to service those bonds. Now, we're not gonna do 100 million at one shot. We don't have the capacity. So we're working on how would we And what could we do, and what will FEMA accept for us to roll forward? It may be smaller amounts of I mean, I know Dan's the smartest guy in the room, not me, but IBANs and principal only. And you know how the Board of Finance, they filter it in. I do know how to do that. Filter it in and make it acceptable to the citizens and giving them quality return. And you have family here, and you have family here. We've been here a long time, and I'm willing to pay it forward for the next, because the generation behind us paid it forward, and we're going to continue to pay it forward to make sure what we hand off when we're no longer here is done right. And, I don't want your children asking, why did you do it that way? And when we say, well, it was cheaper. Well, it's not cheap for me, Dad. Well, so we're going to do it right if we can do it.
Yeah, folks need to understand that the complete recovery is gonna take years. I mean, that bridge they just put in on 67, correct me if I'm wrong, that's just meant to be there for 3 to 5 years until they design and build the
The
final
contractor
solution.
said 3 to 6 to me
Yeah,
before it's,
so that's just, that's just to get the road open. So it's a long, long road in front of us, not just for the homeowners, but for the town, state, everybody involved.
but the good news in all of this is, this town has always been careful and conservative. The fact that we're not carrying bonds right now gives us a capacity where some municipalities, there have been things they want to do, grants they wanted to get, where it's a 20% match. And their difficulty is they can't match the 20%. They don't have the money to match the 20%. So as I said, we have rainy day funds, and one of our rainy day funds is bonds. And it's rained. So now we have the capacity. We just have to figure out how to do it financially correct. And you were on the Board of Finance, Justin. You know the work that was done before you came on this board. The work was done by the Board of Finance to lay this out, and what maneuvers we can make with reserve funds. We can stretch out truck replacements. There's things we can do to offset that, rather than just make a head-on approach. And we've been doing it for a long time now. And we have a very capable person in finance who understands the theory, the John Michaels theory of finance. And I'm fully confident that we will get back. But yes, Justin, it could be 6 to 10 years before we are fully recovered. It's not, this is $100 million, not 1.8 million. But the good news is also that we've done all the right things, the technology is in place, and we'll get this done. Anything else on that? First Selectmen's report, I'll be honest with you, I don't have a lot except a memo from Chief Garillo, dated September 18th. Dear members of the Board of Selectmen, I'm writing to inform you of an important decision made by the town of Southbury regarding the resident trooper program. In light of ongoing challenges, particularly those stemming from the recent storm and subsequent flooding, the town of Southbury has requested that the state of Connecticut terminate the resident trooper contract effective December 1st, 2024. The storm and the extensive flooding that followed caused significant damage throughout the town, and the recovery process remains ongoing. In an effort to reallocate resources and focus on the town's recovery, the shift in manpower and resources was a necessary step. In addition, the town continues to negotiate with the state on terms of the termination to include separation of records and evidence. It's not adversarial, let me be clear. It's just there's certain things that need to take place. The decision reflects the town's current needs and priorities as it works to ensure the safety and well-being of its residents. I conducted a cost analysis of the salary line, and it supports the overlap of the resident trooper without any additional transfers. I trust that this information will be of interest to the board, and I will continue to update anyone with future developments. Should you have any questions or require further information, please feel free to contact me directly. Respectfully, Chief Garillo. So as we know, the best laid plans of mice and men can change in a storm. So December 1st is what we're looking at for realistically doing it correctly. Any questions on the memo? As I said, there was a date that we tried for, but this town, we're not gonna try and make a date, we're gonna try and do it right. So we're gonna make sure it's done right. I mean, everything from what Public Works does, but they have to build an impound yard, and right now they're not, it would not be the thing to be building in their day. So from there, we'll go to reports from liaisons. Justin, you were first.
Economic Development met last night. Had an update from the Economic Development Director, pretty standard stuff. Investment Portfolio has not met since our last meeting. Strategic Plan did meet last week for the first time in a couple months. They're gonna, based on the fact that these are people who have studied our charter extensively, they are gonna come to their next meeting with ideas that they might bring to the Charter Revision Commission. Whether they do that as a group or individually remains to be seen. That's what they're up to. Pool oversight, I don't believe we've met since our last meeting. But the demolition of the pool has begun, as we heard, and that project is underway. That's it.
Okay. Jason, to Bucksbaum, sorry.
I'm not prepared for it.
You have not been assigned yet.
It's gonna get confusing here real quick. So the library board met last week. I believe you were there for a lot of the meeting, and then
Yes.
the first selectman, and I got there after that. And the chunk of the meeting, most of the meeting was spent obviously talking about the library, the damage and whatnot. And also, a lot of the good work that our library staff's doing in trying to continue to provide library services to the public, whether it be through increased online programming, story time at the farmer's market, and just finding other ways to service the public. The library board also voted to increase the digital offerings. I think there was an announcement today or yesterday on the library page doubling the hoopla. So, there's more accessibility to the digital resources than there were before on a monthly basis. And then the Friends of the Library are thinking about their next sale and have opened a space. They had a space donated to them at the plaza, and they're already taking donations in off-site, thinking of them, about their future. So that's what's going on at the library. ARPA task force met, but we already, I think, covered everything that happened at that. We're meeting again next week to sort of discuss the plans that have been put together and make a final recommendation to this body for our next meeting. And then ultimately that will need, just so people understand, because I think the folks lose sight of the authority of the ARPA task force. It's a recommending body. It gets requests from department heads and the public. In this case, it was our social services director that spent an extensive amount of time with us talking about the needs of flood victims. They take those recommendations, review them, make Dan go and do all these analyses, and then make a recommendation to this body, and then this body makes a recommendation to a town meeting, and then a town meeting actually has to vote on appropriating the money. So the task force can't reallocate funds or get rid of projects. That's not how it works. So that happened, and then my other boards did not meet.
I just want to say that I attended the senior center picnic, end of summer picnic, and the seniors were very appreciative of the efforts by the library people to get them books. One woman said, I called and I said, I'd like to get this. They said, well, where would you like to pick it up? Well, can I get it in Woodbury? He says, yeah, we'll make sure it's ready for you at Woodbury. So even the older population that does the books, very happy, what I've heard, very happy with understanding of what they're challenged with, but they are providing services. They're a great group of people that are really stepping up. And again, a lot of the library people are stepping up with admin stuff for capacity for town hall, which is amazing. Tim?
Yeah, the community task force did not meet. Conservation Commission met on August 22nd. Most of the discussion was regarding the damage done to a bunch of the parks. So hopefully that's all going to be cataloged with FEMA. Park and Rec Commission, they met on September 12th. Again, there was a lengthy discussion on the splash pad location and hopes of the commission that they would be considered, again, in dialogue with that splash pad on where it goes. There is a September 29th, the pickleball coach is hosting a pickleball fundraiser for those affected by the flood at Ballantyne Park. All the proceeds from this clinic and the round robin games will be donated to the Southbury Needy Fund. The event starts at 10 a.m. and goes on to 3:30 p.m. They intend to sell Southbury Strong t-shirts there, and everyone is welcome. So hopefully there's a good attendance to that. I wasn't at the last meeting, so I do want to express my gratitude to Southbury's first responders, the Southbury Police, the Southbury Fire Department, Public Works, DOT, Eversource, a bunch of government officials that actually came here to Southbury, our Emergency Management Director, Steve Snell. I was on a number of the meetings with state representatives, with FEMA, and I was really impressed with how impressed most of those people were with our Emergency Management Director and our Fire Marshal, Derek Guerin, and Emergency Management Director, Steve Snell. Also wanted to thank Greg Kuhn for everything that he's done for the town of Southbury. I did enjoy conversations with him and hearing his opinion, and I hope everything goes well with him.
Tim, is Conservation Commission gone out and checked their trails?
They have.
They're documenting it?
Well, in the minutes, there's a number of areas that were affected by the flood, and a
Betsy's
number of
shaking her head.
damages. Yeah. Okay.
Taking a photo, good, good. Okay, and I'm very proud to have hired those gentlemen that are doing so well. Steve's done this emergency management is a funny thing. Everybody wonders what they do until they need to do it. And he's got a lot of other plans that he does, which nobody ever sees, and God forbid, we hope they never have to pull off the shelf. And, but all of a sudden, you're tasked with something, and the plan is there, and not that you always carry it out exactly, but at least you have an idea of what to do and where to go. So it was worked out well.
Yeah, overall, I think everything went very well with the amount of damage that occurred in a number of departments in town. So kudos to everyone involved.
You're welcome. Selectman Sullivan is not with us. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. First Selectman, can I have a point of personal privilege, please?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. First off, I want to thank each one of you for the confidence in bringing me on board. I will do my darndest for you never to regret it. I would like to also recognize Selectman Kuhn. I will have huge shoes to fill. He was a man full of integrity and passion, and I will look to emulate that. I just wanted to thank the folks that came out today. They didn't hang out long, but I did appreciate the show of support, although we still have a couple in the room. You are hardy folks, and I look forward to serving with you. I'm humbled. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn, all in favor? Aye. And we're adjourned. Thank you.